My movie was done in 21 days. And that's a typical Marathi average because they don't have the budget for more. And still they churn out amazing movies.
Note to Bollywood. When you were playing Queen Helena in the series Ashok, that was, I think, one of your most challenging roles.
I never wanted to play a negative character, wanting to be the goody-goody all the time. Playing a negative character is outright fun. You cannot slit somebody's throat. I can't poison somebody in life, but playing it on camera is extreme fun.
What do you think is the greatest gift that India has given to mankind?
Jugaad. That is something that you don't see in other countries. Chalega, we will make this work. We don't have a trolley, we just put the cameraman up in the tree.
People are obsessed with this word called vibrations nowadays. Yeah. Everybody's like, I don't like the vibrations in the room, so I'm exiting. What do you feel about the vibrations in India versus the vibrations in Germany?
I feel like you can tune yourself into such a way that you're not being affected by vibes.
What about Indian spirituality?
I'm careful with that word. The Western world has taken the spiritual word and made it into something else. Like, why do you think you have the right to take 1,000-year-old way of life, Sanatan Dharma, and you can just make it into your own little whatever you want to?
But the narrative in India is that Modi is a fascist.
I met him. I don't agree. It's a certain type of human being who says that. Let's put it like that.
Namaste and welcome to this episode of the Oddcast Show. Today's episode is very wild and odd because we've got Suzanne Bernert on the show. She's a German actress who's played Sonia Gandhi 4 times on television and Indian cinema. She came to India in 2005 for one role, but she never went back. She never looked back. It's been almost 20 years and she's acted in 7 different languages in India. It's a very, very odd journey and we're happy to bring it to you.
Namaste.
Suzanne Bernert ji, how are you doing?
मैं बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ. आप लोग कैसे हैं?
हम एकदम ठीक हैं. We are absolutely fine. Are you ready?
हाँ, बचपन से.
बचपन से. Okay, great. So, as I understand from reading about you, you came to India in around 2005 for a role.
Yeah.
And then you never left. Why?
First of all, I came for a role. I went back because I had to get the right papers. And then I came 1st of November because it's always about the paperwork and the bureaucracy as well.
Absolutely.
So when you go to a different country in a foreign country and you have work offers and you get more and more work offers and then you meet the person that you fall in love with and you marry, you tend to stay in that country.
Right.
I have a counterpart who is also in the media industry and he fell in love with a German and shifted to Germany and he's still there. Okay. So he's my opposite. He's living there. He speaks fluent German and he's very happy there. And he doesn't have any reason to come back here. And I don't have any reason to go back to Germany. So I think there are more of us than people realize. I'm just more visible.
Okay. And you like India?
I love it.
Okay. What's special about India?
The people. I keep on coming back to that. I mean, there are a lot of beautiful things from the temples to what you can all see in the country. It's so big that even if I travel every day, I don't think I will be able to see everything that India has to offer. But I keep on coming back to the people, the small little interactions you're having. I can have a chat with anybody, anywhere, at any time. I don't have to think about it. I just strike up a conversation on the road with somebody about the weather and we will be chatting. Just like that. And it's always such a nice and warm feeling. Right. And also in my industry, my field, I love these different challenges. Like you said, I acted in all these languages. I was approached to play different characters in different regional cinemas. And you are in India, but you're in a different country at the same time because you get to experience a different cuisine, different food, different cultures, a different approach to life. If you go to Bengal, Kolkata, you feel like you're in a different country, but you're still in India. Or if you travel to South, same story. So that kind of diversity and that kind of unity and that kind of beauty, I have not seen anywhere else in the world.
So, the timing of your arrival into India is quite odd, I would say, because, you've witnessed 10 years of the UPA government,
yes,
so to say, and then you've witnessed 10 years of the Modi government.
Yeah.
So which one is better?
I started getting interested in politics only in 2020. Mm-hmm. So before that, I was just like acting, living my life, just being
Jo ho
there.
raha hai, ho raha hai.
Yeah. The only thing that directly had an impact on me is when the new government came is that they changed it was a person of Indian origin card and an OCI card. So that is for people they know this topic. They know that if you either get married to an Indian, you can get these cards to stay in the country and live here and work here, or you have ancestry. Like you have parents from India, you also get this card. So you don't have to, like, you were born in a different country, but you want to keep on visiting India because your grandparents are here, but you're basically from America and your family is Indian. So you get this OCI card. So there were two different ones: overseas citizen of India and person of Indian origin. So the Modi government said, we make this one. So, and we make it online. So from bringing papers physically into offices, it has become an online process. So the ease of, it's not ease of doing business, but it's the ease of applying for things, that everything is getting more streamlined. That's very obvious. My late husband needed a new passport. So he grabbed, I don't know how many papers. I mean, you fill it out online, but he took so many papers and he was like prepared to give all these papers, and it was all given back to me. He said, we don't need these papers anymore.
It's easier.
It's easier now. And even the passport picture that we went out of the way to get one made for him, they took the picture there. So these kinds of things where you see a more streamlined approach to a lot of things. And it's happening on so many levels in so many nooks and corners all at the same time, because it's a young country. It's 76 years old, young. And it has been taking off now in the last couple of years. Be it the stock market or the economy or whatever you're seeing. I mean, after COVID, I think this is the one country that is still booming and blooming.
Wow, that's put into perspective very well. I mean, not many people think that way. But another question I had is that, Indian cinema. You've been here now. You're like literally a veteran now. You've worked here for 20 years and you've worked in so many genres.
Sounds horrible.
You've also worked as Queen Helena in one of the TV series in India.
Yes.
And what's the difference between German cinema and Indian cinema by and large?
Okay, from the work perspective, I wouldn't know because I never worked in Germany except for stage. I've done my first stage. I had my first stage experience in Germany, but uske alawa, I was more here. So I did stage here and I did movies here and TV here, and every project is different. Every production house is different. I mean, you have stuff that is the same, but it's basically everybody's having their own way of approaching things. And TV is very different to movies. Then a typical Hindi movie, Bollywood movie has more time and more money because it's a bigger project usually. I was part of No Problem and they shot for a very long time. They shot like over a year and then went to post-production, and it's this whole process that's going on. But Marathi movie, like I give this example, I was part of a Marathi movie called Galit Gondal Dilit Muzra, political one, came out in 2008, still comes on TV nearly every month in Maharashtra, on Zee Marathi. And Makran Anaspure, Nagesh Bhosle and Saiji Shinde, they did this together and they did two movies simultaneously at the same time. They were shooting two movies. And
you were part of both?
No, I was not part of both, but they shot two movies at and my movie was done in 21 days.
That's it?
That's it. And that's a typical Marathi average, 20, 30 days, because they don't have the budget for more. And still they churn out amazing movies.
Note to Bollywood.
Yeah, but that's the problem. I think I mentioned that before. We had a little pre-chat.
Right.
We were talking a little bit. So that when you're taking like a Marathi super hit, where it's a young, new couple, and you take it and you put it in the Bollywood, Hollywood, the Bollywood Hindi industry. You copy it.
You copy it in Bollywood.
You just take it with the rights. It didn't have the appeal, whatever the Marathi, I don't remember the titles right now, but it was a cute little love story. A new boy, new girl, and it was a super hit in Maharashtra, and Bollywood pays attention. Like they pay attention to South projects, where many a times they go, they buy the rights, and then they take the whole saman and then just make it into their product. And many a times that product is not doing well.
Why is that? The soul is lost?
I think it has to do with because the language is different. Like, for example, if you do a Marathi movie, it will always have a different sur. It's like a different music. It plays on a different level. You have the language is different, the culture is different. So
Feel.
the little flavors and the little masala that you're putting in a Marathi movie, you cannot transfer that directly into a Bollywood movie. And then in a Bollywood movie, you have to decide, do I do a Punjabi flavor or do I do a UP flavor or do I do... So it's a little... You have to understand how to take this Marathi khichdi and make it into a North Indian khichdi. So, but then sometimes little beautiful things might get missed out on because certain parampara, certain traditions, they will not be able to be translated into a different wording, language. I mean, how many times have you translated something from English into Hindi or the other way around? And sometimes it just sounds weird in Hindi and sometimes it sounds absolutely weird in English.
Yeah, the essence is lost.
So the same thing happens with German. So the same thing happens here. So you take any language, regional language, and a product, a movie, a TV show that was made in that language, and you translate it to another. Can work, can also majorly fail. It depends how sensitive the person is who's translating is, how knowledgeable the person is about what's happening in Marathi culture, and how that particular scene, that particular melody can be taken out and put in a different context into a different product and make it smooth, make it work.
What about Indian spirituality? Like, are you spiritual? Have you got into spirituality?
I'm careful with that word because the West has made it into this. The Western world has taken the spiritual word and made it into something else. Like they've taken now, what was the latest I saw? They took yoga and made it into we're taking Christian, we take like sentences from the Bible and while we do asanas. I'm like, excuse me? I'm not going into your church and sitting there and doing, I'm chanting Jai Shri Ram, or I'm not chanting Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, or anything like that. I'm not doing that. Why do you think you have the right to take 1,000-year-old technique, way of life, Sanatan Dharma, and you can just make it into your own little whatever you want to? It's unbelievable.
But what's have you experienced spirituality in India? Have you delved
everywhere.
into it?
I think it's everywhere. It's every nook and corner. It's the way the people are living. They're living. It's not an outside concept where you say, okay, Sunday I go to church, or when I remember I will do certain things and I will behave in a certain way because those are the guidelines and the dogma of Christianity, of church. Yeah. And in Hindu, it's not an ism, so I don't like to say Hinduism because it's not a religion. It's a way of life. It's Sanatan Dharma. It's the way you are actually moving through life as frictionless with less impact as possible, because you also don't want a karmic buildup. We had this talk about that every action that you're doing is resulting in karma, but not in the way of punishment, not in the way of that you have done anything wrong, but in the way of weaving. I feel it like it's weaving a carpet. Your soul is weaving a carpet through different situations. And wherever you're weaving in a certain direction, then it will be a counter weave coming from the life forces around you, because life will never work the way you want it to. We all have encountered situations. In our case, it was death, unannounced, unwanted, sudden, tragic. Now, how we move through this will determine how our karma and our carpet is being weaved. So if we are moving, like you said, you could go self-destruct. You could go in that direction.
Absolutely.
So that will bring a certain vibration to you, to your soul, to your life, that will give that vibration out, and then you will attract a certain energy back. But if you take it as like you said before, as a challenge, I like that term because it is a challenge. How do we get through this time in such a way that we're actually benefiting from this somehow?
Meaningful.
Yeah, it should be that we're taking the person's passing on as a sign to do something in a different way, or take their memories and make them into something meaningful. Definitely celebrate their life. That's what I heard, like Sadhguru was saying, that you have a choice, that you either sit and you're only sad that the person is gone because there's a hole and it hurts and it will take a long time to go ahead. I have that, you guys have that. But at the same time, you also have the choice to celebrate that person's life, that you're actually saying, how beautiful this was when she was here, when he was here, how beautiful these memories are, and that you can look at it and you can actually say, thanks for being with us for this time period.
I see you're wearing a sari, and I understand that this is your first ever interview in a sari.
Yes.
Are you comfortable?
Yes, I'm very comfortable.
You like Indian wear?
Yes, I'm usually wearing it. So when people ask me, can you just give us an audition in Western clothes? I said, jeans, t-shirt, chalega. No, don't you have a black skirt and a white blouse? And don't you have no, why should I have it? I'm not going to an office.
Yeah, exactly.
The concept is that a foreigner is having these clothes. And then when I say, मेरे पास कुर्ता है, कुर्ता pajama है, saris है, ये bangle है, वगैरह मैं क्या करूँ? अच्छा ठीक है, आप जो भी करना है कीजिए. They're always a little flustered with that, no?
But so I'm going to pin you down on the UPA versus NDA thing in a little bit more detail. Like, I want to get into the nitty-gritty. Like, what's the apart from the ease of doing things and things are easier and digitization and all that, what else do you generally see around you in India? Like, do you see better infrastructure? Do you see better airports? Do you see, better ease of living? What do you see?
It depends where you are and which part. So that has something to do with it. I want to just come back to that. I think 2020 was a rediscovering for a lot of people because they had the time. So a lot of YouTube channels were coming up at that time, or they were discovered at that time, who were showing a different history that was being taught prior. So I think what is happening right now is a rediscovery of what India is, what Bharat is about, where it is going, what the itihas is. From what I understood is there were a lot of textbooks that were just
history was distorted.
Giving a distorted view of the history. So in that sense, I feel like government is also encouraging this and looking at these textbooks, or looking at outdated laws. How many laws were just abolished and a new system has been brought into place?
300-year-old laws still functioning in India.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, that it's a huge country and it has all these different requirements, and it's still running on some outdated and old-fashioned ideas from prior, let's call them, I don't know, invaders, no guests, no, I don't know.
Speaking of history and being distorted, what is the kind of history that's taught to Germans in Germany?
We have pretty bang on about if you're hinting at the Second World War. So we are definitely having that in school. It's mandatory. I just read up online. It's mandatory to visit a concentration camp in Bavaria only, not in the rest, because every state can decide. Every state is having a slightly different variation on the education, different way of teaching the student. They don't have the same textbooks, for example. But in that sense, there's a big emphasis on Second World War and what happened at that time, and how out of that we should progress in a certain way. The country should move ahead in a certain way. Because you learn from your history. By looking back, you can move forward. So when I went to school, it was still mandatory to go and be educated about it and visit one of the camps.
So how do you think that has affected the Germans before and after implementing this compulsion?
I think the compulsion must have been right there from the beginning. I didn't have time to find that, because if I'm Googling something about Germany I'm in India and I'm Googling in English. So sometimes I just don't get articles related to it. It's not that easy to find stuff. But it must have been right there after the Second World War, when schools were starting again. This kind of implementation must have been there. So I grew up feeling guilty about what happened. So, and I think my dad also had that in his tummy, even though he was born 1944 during the war. His mother was actually told to leave him on the side of the road as a baby, because they said, we are fleeing. They had to leave from one day to the other and leave everything behind, all the property or whatever was there. They just had to pack bags and leave. So she had not only him, she had also her brother's child, because they were shot down, they were killed while traveling. So she had two babies. One was 6 months old and the other one was a baby. And they were telling her, why don't you leave him by the side of the road? And she's like, no. And she made it. She brought them safely to what was then at that time West Germany, or like bomb Germany. At that moment, nobody was like in 44, 45, where people were going or what was happening. It was a big mess. So my dad never knew his father. But a certain guilt was always being played on by other countries in the world, making us feel like we're the baddies, even though we had nothing to do with it. So me personally, I had a lot of issues with coming here. I had issues with people using the term Hitler in front of me. I was very super hypersensitive about it. So I had a colleague of mine, he was like, he wanted to make a joke. I asked him something. He was like, yeah, Hitler. I had a nervous breakdown. I ran out of the room and I cried. And my late husband then came and calmed me down. He said, see, they don't know this here. They don't know about Hitler. They don't know what happened. So you have to understand that this just means you're a little like tough and stern or something like this. So it's going in that direction. So going out of Germany and also interacting with other people, I could see that a lot of the world is not seeing me as a culprit, nor my dad as a culprit, but there are certain people who have an agenda keeping Germany in that way.
Like in a subdued manner.
In a subdued manner, you know.
That you're guilty.
The moment somebody is saying something in Germany, then it's like, are you people from the Second World War, no? That you killed and everything.
Like villains, basically.
Yeah, villains. Because it comes in handy, no? You can control another country much better. In certain ways, you can influence the politics if you are having these kinds of agendas, if you have these kinds of tools that you can work with.
So I would like to take you back to your acting career. I presume that you came to India initially because of that, for a role over here.
Yeah.
So how was the work environment in acting in Germany versus over here?
I wouldn't know that. I never worked in Germany on TV or movies. But
Except
when I came
theatre.
Yeah, theater, but theater is like a completely different genre. It has nothing to do with the day-to-day, because it's like you have rehearsals and then you have 2 shows or 4 shows over the weekend. It's a very different lifestyle. And that you don't have here. I can talk about that, because here in India, the theater I've done here, in Germany, you have a fixed theater, so you can rehearse in the theater that you're performing. And here it is that you cannot rehearse in the theater that you perform in, because they don't give you the time. Like NCPA, you only pay the rent for the duration. No, not even that day. The just duration of the show and a little bit ahead, so you can do a setup. So you never actually stood on that stage. So you have to rent a different place to rehearse, and then you just can shift the whole thing. And
so you don't get the right feel of it.
I think you have to be much more alert here. I think it's a luxury to perform on the same stage, like rehearse and perform on the same stage.
Right.
You don't have that necessarily here.
Right.
But that makes you also maybe a more adaptive actor and more improvised things are happening, and then they might be nice. Like Akil told this story that they were at Prithvi and the lights went. So there's this beautiful story that Akil was telling me that he was performing at Prithvi and suddenly the electricity went. And he was like, okay, then we take a break, or let's see when it comes back. And in one go, the whole audience decided to turn on their screens or their torches. So the rest of the play, the last 20, 25 minutes, they were just performing with the torches of mobile phones.
Wow.
So that's the specialty about theater. You never know what might suddenly happen, how you have to improvise. And I think that's the similarity that can also happen in Germany. So you have a similarity there. Then TV, for example, I think TV in Germany must be more organized because TV in India, the way I encountered it in the beginning, I was with Balaji Telefilms for 1.5 years in Atrocities and in Nigiki. And I was like, it was 16, 18 hours. One time I had a record. I was 3 days on the set. Like they sent me home to shower and come back.
That's it.
So, yeah. So that kind of having a bank of episodes, having like a gap of 2-3 days for any eventuality. That didn't exist in 2005 and 6 and 7 and 8. Then SINTA, the Senior Artists Association, started pushing, for 12 hours. Let's not overdo it. Let's have proper hours. Let's take care of our people, because it's not only the actors. I can go in between. I can go, मैं आराम से बैठ सकती हूँ ना. But the people who are doing lights or sound or camera, they're constantly there. They constantly have to work. So they never know what is, they don't have the breaks. So it was a combined effort of different associations trying to get the hours a little bit under control. And it has worked. And the movie is a different tempo. Movie is different locations. Movies, you sometimes shoot only 3-4 scenes in a day or even less than that. And on TV, you do 5, 6, 7 in a day. Because it's a telecast thing. You have to jump to the next.
Right. So I want to talk to you about nepotism generally. I mean, like nepotism in Bollywood.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because India is now moving to a meritocracy, a stage where, if you have merit, you get work. For example, a doctor's son cannot become a doctor unless he qualifies. He studies for it and he becomes that, right? Similar to a lawyer, etc., etc. But there are two businesses, I would say, in India. One is acting, Bollywood, and one is politics, where, you can get in, given the fact that, you're so-and-so's son or daughter or whatever that is. So how do you perceive it in Bollywood? What's happening in Bollywood? Does nepotism exist there?
I had a conversation actually with my parents about this because my mom was upset. I constantly see XYZ actor's son, daughter being pushed down our throats, even though they don't have the talent. So it seems to be like happening in more countries than just here. And nepotism, I feel like sometimes people get more chances and more easier entry into projects and into movies that they otherwise wouldn't get if it wouldn't be for the last name. But then they also probably have to prove themselves more. Because if you carry a heavy burden, like your father is super famous and you have the same last name, I wouldn't want that zimmedari. I wouldn't want this on my shoulders. So there is this back and forth. Yeah, definitely nepotism is there. It will definitely happen because I think there's also an interest in if a child is there, how the child will do. Everybody loved that actor. Oh, maybe the child is like a new version of that same, maybe this can be like, we can just transfer.
Yeah, I've never thought about that way.
Our allegiance to the child. And it would be interesting, especially if two actors are married, let's see what the child is like. No? So maybe it will be the super talented something. So interest is there. What I have an issue with is giving like all these ads to newcomers that I can't make out anymore who's in front of the camera. There I have an issue if a child of an actor is in front and is trying to sell me a makeup product or mascara or lipstick or a drink or milk or whatever they're trying to pitch to me. If I don't know who you are because you don't have that kind of a reach from that I know who you are, then I don't see why you're being used.
It's not going to be influential.
I don't feel it influential. It's actually sometimes the opposite. I'm being turned off. So I don't know if that is just mine and the circle around me that feels like this, or if this is a general thing, or people don't pay so much attention. Yeah, I'm also like focusing on these things a lot due to my line of business. But nepotism definitely is there, and also connections. If you're in a clique, if you have made contacts in the beginning of your career with certain people, and you have. I can't even find a fault in that because I also had contacts in the beginning, people who were like, I met through Akhil. Akhil introduced me to people and then they remembered me when they needed a foreigner for a certain character. Or they were saying, oh, now we can do this project because we have a foreigner who can speak some tuta-futa Hindi and can do these kinds of, like, is good actress. And it's not that easy, to understand. It would be easy to just like say, oh yeah, it's completely horrible, or like, yeah, it's completely okay. I think it's depending on case to case.
What are your thoughts on this open border policy that some countries in Europe have?
If some countries in Europe, like, I would have to read up more on it. I can just say that Germany is struggling with the influx of people that is coming because we already had a lot of immigrants, and now we have refugees on top of it. Like the most people being taken in from Ukraine have gone to Germany. And that is a country that is actually having an aging population.
Yes.
So that is not that there is this huge social security net that we can just like take in so and so many people, even though we want to. Like the basic the people I spoke to, these discussions have been happening since 2012 and 13, where my husband was pointing out to my parents, listen, this is getting a little bit too much. And they're saying, yeah, but we can, and Christians, and we love everybody, and let them come. And so I see a problem in it, that if it is overburdening the existing system, then the people who are actual citizens of that country and are from that country, they're being neglected. And that's what's happening right now. So there's a lot of sometimes sadness, anger, helplessness, because if you can't access your resources anymore because there are too many people who are trying to access it at the same time, you will feel left out. So I feel a lot of people in Germany, they don't feel heard by their government. They want to be heard by their government. They want their issues being addressed. They want to know, are my pensions still secure? I'm working now. I'm in my mid-30s, 40s. Will it make sense for me to pay another 20 years into the social security system? Where is this going? Where is this country going? And if you don't have a leader who is showing the way and is calming the population and is saying, we will do all this together, it's hard to understand where Germany is heading at the moment. And it's very confusing.
You mentioned earlier that, in schools in Germany, that it was mandatory at a time to, visit concentration camps and see and witness and try and get a feel of, what the Nazis did to the Jews, etc., and, the extermination, etc.
As a prevention.
As a prevention, right. But has that made you all soft now to accept and open your borders and allow people in? Is that one of the factors?
Maybe. I mean, as I mentioned before, guilt. If you can instill a guilt into some other person about something that not even that person has done, somebody else has done from that family line, sins of the father. You are carrying something that somebody else has done, and the other person is able to trigger that. That can be very convenient in certain political circumstances, because you can play this out in diplomacy. You can play this out in economics, in import-export. Because if you always have this on the button to press, that you say, but you killed Jews. Horrible that it happened. Very sorry it happened. But I didn't. My dad didn't. It happened before. And Germany has to find a way that they can say that they need to find a way to say, we're very sorry what happened. We have taken the responsibility for it. We're still paying for it monetarily. We will make sure it will not be forgotten by our people, but we also need to be able to move on, work on strengthening the economy, making our borders a little bit more secure, because we cannot absorb so many people, even if we wanted to. And it's just a matter of money as well. And it's still impossible for somebody to stand up and say, I'm proud to be German. Mm-hmm. It's still a taboo to say, I'm proud of my nation. I'm proud to be German. That is still being associated with right-wing and fascism and being a Nazi. So after, it's also very common that when you are having a disagreement on Twitter, on X, if people run out of ideas, they just shoot that bullet at you. You're a Nazi. Like, okay, where did this come from? We were discussing COVID, and we were discussing masks, wearing masks in the car, and these kinds of things. Where are you
It's
coming?
like a prejudice that the people kind of hold
against. It should be subjugated into that.
It's a weapon. It's a weapon. So I don't even knowing about what happened, and education is definitely something that is needed. I understood that it is not mandatory now anymore. My generation, it was still mandatory to do this. And when you are a little sensitive like I was, it hits you.
It plays on your mind.
Yeah, because you're 13, 14, 15, it hits you. It hits you like a truck, because it is your country. It is your country, people. So how do you, as a teenager full of hormones and sensibilities and being confused anyways, how do you digest this kind of information at that age? I'm not saying not to do it, but also to understand that there will be kids who are just shrugging it off and said, no, this is all lies because they can't handle it. or they're so superficial that they don't care, or they're sensitive ones who are start like having nightmares like me.
There is not many people know about this, and it's pretty odd that people don't know about this, but we had a bioweapons expert on the show, and she talked about, during the World Wars, the Japanese committed many more far dirty atrocities than the Nazis, but they were let off because the kind of tech and the kind of information that they had collaborated from human clinical trials and using bioweapons was far worse than what the Nazi party has been accused of doing.
I mean, people from the Nazi party have been used by America because they had a special knowledge about Russia.
Correct. It's the Nuremberg trials took place, but
if you have knowledge, if you have a certain specific knowledge, you can be useful for a government, then they will just push all this to the side.
So that's exactly what they did with the Japanese.
Same way they're using the guilt factor when it's convenient to them. Especially, there's always this animosity between England and Germany, especially in football terms. And there's like, maybe not in one-on-one, but there is an animosity happening there. So these guys, they're very, very easy. They're saying, you guys and Nazis, and you did all of this and you're horrible. But nobody in Germany is turning around and said, Churchill, India, Bengal.
Absolutely. That's worse. Yeah.
How many people died there?
Millions.
Yeah. How many people were shot down? How many people were killed by the Britishers?
Yeah, and the amount of money they took away.
Yeah. And to this day, the Kohinoors were.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that other countries have done, but we are not turning around and we are not pointing the finger at them for these things. So there's definitely agendas behind certain mechanisms that have been established over the last so many decades.
Absolutely. There's
and
so
when
many
you're
games
living in Germany, then it's also very difficult to break out. I was fortunate not to live in the country to see it from outside, to maybe see certain things that other people can't see.
Coming back to India, people are obsessed with this word called vibrations nowadays.
With what?
Vibrations.
Okay.
Everybody's like, I don't like the vibrations in the room, so I'm exiting.
Gotcha.
So what do you feel about the vibrations in India versus the vibrations in Germany?
I vibe on my own terms.
Okay.
That's a good answer.
But generally, like, how do you feel?
Generally, I really feel it's everybody's own zimmedari. I feel like you can tune yourself into such a way that you're not being affected by vibes. That's where my Kriya comes in. That's why I do that, because it's like in Inavala Snan. You are purifying yourself. Nazar bhi nahi lage, because you're taking care of yourself. It's a tool that's been given to you. You don't need outside help. You don't have to go to anywhere. You don't even have to leave your room. You can do this at home, alone, a tool being given to you by your guru, whoever that may be, because there are so many wonderful people out here, wonderful gurus out here, and whoever resonates with you, there you want vibes. You want to be attracted to a certain person because he's talking in a certain way, and you feel like, oh, this is working for me. So when I had panic attacks in 2020, after my uncle passed away, while it happened, I was fine. After he was gone, I had panic attacks. So I found Isha Kriya online. I knew about Sadhguru. I listened to him on off like I was listening to Sri Sri. And but this Isha Kriya helped me through these panic attacks because I was using it and I got calm instantly. My system was going from overdrive to calmness. So then lockdown happened and I said, this is an opportunity to do inner engineering, where he's basically teaching you tools, gives you tools, certain guidelines and certain ways of fixing yourself. So
for the sake of our audience, can you just, before you proceed with this, tell us what exactly is Kriya? Kya hai Kriya?
This Kriya is an energy Kriya. Isha Kriya is also an energy Kriya. There are different Kriyas. There's a Karma Kriya, and there, like, you have all these different, you should get an expert on that.
Techniques.
It's a technique. It's a way of where you are combining certain asanas and breathing techniques and making them sometimes with a mantra, sometimes with a chanting, and you're making them into a piece that works on an energy level of yours. Like Isha Kriya as having where he is saying certain sentences repetitively, then there's a music piece, then you are 7 times to release energy, and then there's a chant on top of it. So it's kind of like a build up. You're doing certain things to reach a certain feeling, a certain relaxation. So the same with Shambhavi, what is a little bit more complex.
How did that affect you?
With me, it makes me calm. It makes me be able to go on, especially after Akhil passed away. Except for the day of the cremation, I was doing it every day. Crying through it, howling through it, but doing it. And it was definitely something that helped me and is still helping me. And you don't have to go anywhere. What I love about it is it's giving to you. You do it and you don't need anybody else. You don't need anybody playing music. You don't need to go. You don't need to leave your house. You don't need somebody sitting with you. It's for you. It's very empowering. I found it very empowering. I found it, this is a way to be able to fix myself without any outside help.
Right. Speaking of spirituality, have you ever delved into any scriptures? Any Hindu scriptures? Have you ever read any of them?
A little bit, like...
Which one?
Not, that is over my head. There's too much. There's too much. This is just a huge topic. I was just like looking up whatever Sadhguru is talking about. I was looking at that, and I was looking in depth at Gayatri Mantra because I had to do it for a TV show, so I was interested in that as well. But it's so vast. There's so many things. I was listening also to a very interesting person, Sri M.
Right.
So in that context, I listen to a lot of him, but I can't quote, I can't talk about it. It's not something that I'm still in the absorption level.
But did you meet a physical guru in India and get initiated, or did you just do it online?
Sadhguru was online, and I saw him at the Safe Soil event.
Okay.
So I was there. I didn't get to meet him.
Mm-hmm.
That's not up to him. Other people are deciding this.
Right.
So what they always try to do is get him together with people who help to reach a new audience.
Mm.
So it's that kind of a thing. Mm. So at the Safe Soil, I was very upset because I wanted to meet him, and I realized I was not on that batch. I couldn't meet him.
Okay.
So, and then I sat down and I looked at myself very hard, and I was like, okay, this is your ego. Your ego wants to meet him. Your ego wants the picture with him. And then I realized I basically meet him every day when I do my Kriya, because the initiation happened. It was online because it was still in COVID times, but the initiation was so powerful that you actually feel something. Something happened at that moment.
Can you describe that? I mean, I know most of these things.
It's different for everybody. Some people, they just like go boom. They see stuff, they experience stuff. And with me, it's a calmness, because I tend to be a nervous person. So with me, it becomes like a calm, quiet, floaty kind of a feeling. So for me, it's that.
So speaking of Kriya, how has it affected your acting? Does it make you feel more easy on camera? Does it make you remember your lines better? How does it work?
Yeah. So I started with all of this in 2020, and I was acting in 2021, my first Malayalam movie. So I was flying to Kochi, and usually I would get nervous. Like on the plane, a little nervous. Abhi kya hone wala hai? Kaun hai wahan? Kaise group hai? Kaun se team hai? Main abhi ye bhasha bhi nahi baat kar sakti hu. Like the first question will be, how will I interact with everybody? Angrezi aati hai wo log ya nahi aati hai? How will I maneuver, you know? Because you never know what you're getting into. It's like, sometimes a little scary. And I was waiting for the anxiety to kick in. Nothing on the plane, nothing at the airport, nothing with the driver. I'm actually joking with him. Then nothing in the hotel. Coming to the set the next day, I was calm the whole time. And I was like, yeah, abhi kya ho gaya? So I think that it has to do with the Kriya, because it started making me more calm and made me more alert at the same time. More precise, more aware. Like when I'm talking to you here now, I feel more in control like I used to be. Like previous interviews, I was maybe more emotional and I was talking and I wasn't able to finish a story in a way, you know, like starting somewhere, going somewhere, and then just like tapering off kind of thing. It just
came seamlessly easy.
Yeah. So it makes, I think a Kriya is something that makes your life smoother, or meditation, or whatever you want to put. Chanting. Some people, they love to chant. They do that every day and it helps them. Mm. So you have for different people, different things, and that you will find through vibrations probably, or whatever falls into your lap, because there's no such thing as a coincidence. I just wish I would have found this earlier. I would have loved to have this when I was playing Ashok in Ashok, Queen Helena.
You mentioned that when you were playing Queen Helena in the series Ashok, that was, I think, one of your most challenging roles.
Yeah, it was very challenging because it was my first negative character. I never wanted to play a negative character. Again, the ego, I was preferring to be the sweet bahu. मैं चाय लेकर आती हूँ और ये सारे ऐसी चीज करनी है. And I was more interested in that, mixing up my own image with my acting image, like wanting to be the goody all the time.
Right.
I didn't know it's so much fun. Playing a negative character is outright fun because you can do things that you can never, I can't slit somebody's throat. I can't poison somebody in life, but playing it on camera is extreme fun. And you will realize that a lot of really, really sweet human beings play negative characters. Like they're really the nice people. They play the baddies on screen.
That's really odd. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, but it's true. Like if you see, who's that actor? Prem Chopra? Darling. Soft, sweet. Completely the opposite of what they made him perform or what he was acting, right? So you have these kinds of completely... and sometimes the sweet one, the one who plays always the sweetie, she can be...
really bad.
It can be really like taxing to work with somebody like that.
What about playing...
Ashok was like challenge on the language level because it was Sanskritized Hindi. So it was, my husband actually stopped being an actor himself for the time the show was on air because he was literally sitting in the vanity van with me, doing the lines for me, helping me with the lines, explaining words for me, because on the set, nobody has the time. They're all busy with setting up the set.
Sanskritized Hindi is heavy.
Yeah, and it's like words like, you don't say uske baad, you say uske paschat. ऐसे शब्द इस्तेमाल करते हैं वो हम normal life में नहीं करेंगे. We don't talk like this. We don't use these words. Or a word like keval. You don't, no? So he helped me to get into the groove of the language, helped me with the lines, recorded it on WhatsApp so I could listen to it and see it in front of me, came up with a certain way. If it is tum from the ta, then he was underlining it. If it's not underlined, then it's not. So these kinds of things, like working with me on the language a lot. So
challenging.
Abhi tak uski bina, it wouldn't have happened. He was like the backbone completely on every level. So the language is there. Then heavy costumes, challenging conditions of shooting. We were shooting in Rajasthan in extreme cold, in extreme heat. Then we were shooting in Karjat. There is this ND studio. And they had this whole setup there, huge setup, huge darbar. Like you can play football in it. I think it must have been like a football field, huge, and you can't put AC there. So I remember there's an actress of mine, a colleague of mine, they call it anaconda, when the cold air, when the AC is being like filtered into the room with a big, like a plastic pipe of this size. Yeah. So she used to stand in front of him and go like this. And I'm like, hey. We also, she used to like really crawl into that thing. It's taxing. You have this heavy language and then you have like hot, you have,
and heavy costumes on top of that.
I can't count the times how many times I fainted. I think one of the biggest faints I ever had was like we were shooting in a tent and I had like my crew, my co-conspirators with me. So I'm talking to Tej Sapru, who played my dad. So I'm talking to him, and so it was first his close-up, then it was my close-up, so they're changing the light, that all takes time, changing the light, changing the setup, doing this, doing that, turning the camera's on me, I'm trying to remember the first sentence, boom, out. And then they said later, it was probably because of light and heat in May, it must have been over 50 degrees in that tent. God. So I don't remember anything. I was just like out, and then somebody picked me up and carried me to the vanity bed. It was like,
But you also played Sonia Gandhi 4 times, once on television, I understand.
Yeah, twice on television.
Twice on television.
One was not telecast. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So how was it playing? What was your most memorable part of playing her?
go a little back. Since I've come to this country, there have been always projects where somebody wanted to make a movie or a TV show about her. None of them materialized. So 2014 with ABP News, it was the first time that it was the story, the life story of the candidates for prime minister. So they wanted to just show the background. So there was Rahul Gandhi. So they were showing Sonia Gandhi and they were showing like in flashbacks. Like she is talking on the phone and she's taking care of the kids. Like small little tidbits. It's on YouTube. It's called 7RCR, like the address.
Race Court Road, yeah.
Yeah. So that was then. And after that, Accidental Prime Minister was where I was playing her. So two funny stories. One, we were shooting in England, in Bradford. There was this castle look-alike and they needed interiors and the interiors were like looking like Delhi. So for certain reasons, they were shooting it in England. And it's a producer's job. I don't really know. I got to travel. So I was in England and we were shooting interior scenes there a lot. So I used to come in the morning looking like this, jeans, t-shirt, jacket, was a little cold, going up to my makeup room, like beautiful house from the inside, like really old furniture, wonderful, really nice place to be. Get up, sari, come down, shoot my scenes, and then in the evening leave again. After 3 days, one of the light department team, he's asking me, this British guy, he was like, listen, what are you actually doing? I see you coming in the morning and leaving in the evening, and in between I don't see you. And I look at him, I was like, I'm in front of the camera. You're working with me every day. And he's like, where am I working with you? I said, and everybody else started laughing. He's like, she's playing Sonia Gandhi. And he's like, literally that was the reaction because the transformation was so drastic from being blonde and blue-eyed to having the wig and the contact lenses and the sari and everything. So it takes also 2.5 hours. It's not something like when people say I look like her, I said it still takes 2.5 hours to look like Sonia Gandhi. So it's not something.
That's one funny incident. What's the next one?
The next one was we were shooting in Delhi at the Imperial. And so I was in my makeup room and we had bodyguards. When we were shooting in Delhi, all the actors had bodyguards. So they called me for my scene and in the get-up, I'm coming out, I'm in Delhi, I have bodyguards around me. So there were so many people, they were just stopping, phone out, starting to click pictures. They were thinking I'm her.
Oh, they actually thought you're Sonia Gandhi. I mean, in the crowd.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I entered the set and they were like, we were shooting a press conference or like an interview. So there was a whole room full of junior artists, like maybe 250 people. And I could hear them talking and there was like chitter chatter going on. And then the bodyguard opens the door. I enter, boom, silence. Like literally in seconds, the whole room went, I'm like, oh, wow, that's power.
That's power, huh? But
you get that feeling. You're kind of like, so I walked the whole down the corridor to my director, to the monitor. Not one peep. Nobody was saying, nobody was talking. I was like, oh my God.
But the narrative in India is that Modi is a fascist. He's a dictator. He's this, he's that.
I met him. So I don't agree. I don't agree. It's a certain type of human being who says that. Let's put it like that.
Because if he was a fascist, then you couldn't say that he's a fascist.
Exactly. I'm always like, oh, you are worried about freedom of speech in the country, but you're tweeting whatever you want to, mostly. Or you're saying whatever you want to, mostly. So
mostly, I mean, like people are tweeting whatever they want.
Yeah, about him, yeah.
Yeah. About anything.
I mean,
rather.
Yeah.
Freedom of speech is at its all-time high, I think, in India right now.
So I just have one last question to end this podcast.
Okay.
Since we've spoken so much about cultures and things to learn from different people throughout this podcast, I want to hear from you. What do you think that the German youth can learn from the Indian youth? And what can the Indian youth learn from the German youth?
Oh.
It's a very tough philosophical question.
Yeah, because the German youth in itself has become so diverse. There's so many kids that have grown up from immigrants, like Turkish immigrants. They have completely assimilated, but they still kept some of their own culture with them.
Right.
This typical German, especially in big cities, doesn't even exist like that anymore. It has become like more mixed up. But in general, maybe the emphasis on family life and how to be with your parents, how to respect your parents. I think that is going a little bit missing. I see that here also a little bit, like a younger generation. They are like, they're just jumping around doing whatever they want to. And then you go like, okay, I didn't see this 10 years back. So I think there's some softening happening, and I don't know if it's in the right direction. I don't say do anything, but this whole concept about if somebody is older to you, then they also know more, and I respect that. That's what I love. Where you actually, this is already acknowledging the spirit in you and the God in you when you do this. And touching feet is bowing down towards the wisdom that you want to take. And this generation, I think a lot of people, or even the previous one, I feel like they're trying to get rid of that wisdom. They maybe think that people who are older, they're not so important anymore. They don't understand there's a lot of anubhav, there's a lot of experience behind this. There's a lot to learn still from these people. There's too much emphasis on what you also said, looks. There's too much emphasis on how you look and how you behave, and too much social media, too much surface, and not looking at the next level.
Inner world.
Yeah, the inner world. And the Indian youth, don't litter. Don't throw trash on the road.
Don't spit.
Don't spit. Yeah, these kinds of things.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a final question from my end. Since you have moved to India in 20 years, you've experienced a lot in Indian cinema. You've worked in so many genres. You worked in the East in Bengal. You worked in the South. You worked in the West. You worked everywhere in India. What do you think is the greatest gift that India has given to mankind? Is it yoga? Is it spirituality? Is it family concepts? Is it what is it that what do you think is the best thing that India has given to mankind?
Jugaad.
And it could be many things.
Jugaad.
that's
because
odd.
that is something that you don't see in other countries. This chalega, we will make this work. We don't have a trolley. We just put the cameraman up in the tree, and then there will be 15 people who are just taking the rope and just pulling him down or up or whatever needs to be done. I've seen things that I thought is impossible, and it's being pulled off, especially in the film industry. I don't know anywhere else, but Jugaad is definitely something where it's not even a term anywhere. I can't even translate this.
Right.
If you put this in Google, I don't think there's
actually, what's the word for Jugaad in English?
I don't think it's there. Yeah. Because I have to use
makeshift, maybe makeshift.
But makeshift is negative, no?
Right.
On the spot, perfect improvisation out of necessity. I think that's it.
Great. Cool. So I think, thank you so much for coming. I think this is really odd that, I thought your answer.
No, there will be, of course, all the other things that you were saying, definitely all of this very beautiful. Lots of things have been given. And I think a lot of what India has to offer is letting other people live the way they want to live. This interference that other countries keep on having and poking their nose into the business of this country. It's not really happening. This country is not doing it with other countries.
We've never invaded anyone.
Yeah, that's also something. I mean, yoga and Ayurveda and all these things is out of the question. That's definitely there. But I also feel like there has to be an acceptance as well from the West. I mean, they can't just come and take whatever they want to, change it into whatever they want to. They just can't take a certain breathing technique and just suddenly call it conscious breathing. They can't take yoga and make it to be a yoga. Yeah, or Christian yoga or whatever they want.
Beer yoga nowadays.
Beer yoga. I was like, are you out of your mind? What the heck is this supposed to be? Yeah. So there are certain things where I feel like even if you're giving the gift, the other person has to be also willing to take it.
And you mentioned during the podcast that, a lot of Indians are now waking up.
Yes.
And trying to reclaim their lost civilizational values.
Yeah.
What's your message to Indians now?
I think they're also doing it beautifully without becoming obnoxious or weird or aggressive or, stupid with it. I think any other, like a lot of people would go crazy about this. Like, for example, if somebody is a smoker and they become a non-smoker, they try to educate everybody else around them constantly about it. So here, this is more a silent awakening, but a very strong one, I feel.
And what's your message to Indians now?
Keep on going. You're on the right path.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much for being on the Oddcast. I hope you enjoyed your time.
Yeah.
Right?
It was wonderful.
Right.
Loved
Namaste.
it. Okay.
Thank you.